And it looks like the Hangout on Air is live. So this is the March 2017 GNU Radio project call. And we actually have a decent agenda today, unlike last month. Although, to be honest, like the short calls are also not that bad. We'll be talking about GSOC, the new wiki. Jonathan Corgan will be talking about releases, and then Ben will be talking about GRCon, one of our favorite subjects. So I'll just kick it off, talk a little bit about GSOC. So you probably heard that we were accepted by GSOC, and that's very, very cool. Now, we're currently in the phase where students are supposed to approach us with their project ideas, and 2 of them already have done that on the mailing list. One of them is Karthik. If I pull up I don't have my emails in front of me, but this is someone who joined the mailing list a couple of months ago and has been very active, and that is something that we do appreciate and we do value. And he has submitted a proposal for which he has currently not gotten any comments in on the mailing list. So I would like to encourage people to take a look at that and give him some feedback. There was another slightly less fleshed out proposal on the same subject. Both of them were this HTML5 GUI thing. So if anyone comes on the mailing list and asks for comments, I would strongly urge everyone to just take a look at them, give some feedback, say what you think is going to be useful or not, give some constructive feedback on maybe estimates on time, anything you can think of. And of course, if you actually know students who want to participate, I would also like you to encourage them to do so, especially university labs. I really, university labs step up and sort of make it more popular among their own students, and then maybe even help them out by giving them lab space to do their GSOC projects in, maybe even hardware if they need that. So, maybe, spectrum, not everyone has a spectrum analyzer, but it might come in handy for one of these projects. So stuff like that, we really appreciate. The guys from CEL have done a great job of that. And I'm not just saying that because I was there at one point in the past, like after I left, we had a lot of great students, and not only great students, but also tutelage and mentoring coming from staff in that lab. And yeah, that's something I'd like to see more of. But in general, I'm very happy that we were accepted into GSOC, and we will still apply to SOCUS, which is always much later, so there's no news on that. But at least that's going to happen. And best case, we'll have some awesome projects coming out of this and having people talking about those at GRCon. That's all I have on GSOC. And that's really more of an announcement. There's not much of a discussion here. The next thing I want to bring up is the wiki. And now people may have heard rumors of this, but we are actually moving away from Redmine. So and we are moving to MediaWiki. So there's separate reasons for moving away from Redmine and moving to MediaWiki. So a while back, I was tasked with evaluating wiki software that we can use instead of Redmine. And I've really tried everything, even Git, which is written in Haskell, and Golem, which is something which is in theory what GitHub uses. And really, MediaWiki was the only viable solution that sort of satisfied all of our constraints. And it's also widely used. It's very popular. I mean, it's what drives Wikipedia, so most people have seen this in the past. So I do think this is a good choice. And we're currently in the state where we are setting up the new wiki, but it's actually already live and currently loading. I will show it on my screen really quick. Share my screen. Okay. Can you see that? Is my screen coming through?
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
So the URL wiki.gnuradio.org. It's kind of in a work in progress, but the majority of pages was sort of auto-imported from Redmine through a couple of scripts that we cobbled together. And a lot of the deprecated and obsolete content, all of the deprecated and obsolete content was not imported because it was already tagged as such, so that's gone now. But most of the other pages were just imported verbatim. We used Pandoc to do the conversion from Textile to MediaWiki, so not all of the markups came through fine. In particular, syntax highlighting didn't come through fine. So we've had to do a lot of manual work, and that's where my request comes in and my announcement. So first of all, we decided to commit to switching over to the new wiki by the end of this week. So by Sunday night in a time zone that we can choose. And then we'll just turn off Redmine. We'll have some redirects for the most important pages, and then everything else will just go straight to the main page. So the new wiki will become live very, very soon, and but it won't be in a perfect state. And that's where my request comes in. We'd really like some people to help us clean it up, clear out cruft, and then also just give suggestions and feedback on how we've implemented that. So I've been sort of randomly, not randomly, but I've been trying out various plugins for example, syntax highlighting now works, LaTeX works, so Marcus can contribute, and other people, of course. But there's probably things missing. One thing I'm sorry?
I'm just grateful.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I think of you a lot, Marcus. There you go. What was I going to say? Yes, one thing I'd like to enable is the ability to use your GitHub credentials to log in. And there's a plugin that, in theory, lets do that, but I wasn't able to activate it, or at least it didn't work. If you have experience with that kind of stuff, please contact me. But there were at least 2 people I would like to thank very, very much for helping me doing the initial import. One of them was William, who I don't think we've met him yet. And he actually said, yeah, this is a good time for him to start getting involved in the project. And that's something I'd love to see. So thanks a lot. William did most of the imports, and also Derek helped with some of the pages. Derek Cozell, that is. So the new wiki is mostly functional, and that's why we don't feel bad at all about finally killing Redmine and moving over to the new wiki entirely. So very briefly, why are we getting rid of Redmine? We don't hate Redmine, but the way it was set up and the installation it was running on was simply not sustainable. So we had to do something about it. We probably could have reinstalled and sort of set it up newly, but that didn't really seem like it was going to be more useful than just moving to a more widely used wiki software, because the wiki was really the only feature we were still using after we moved the issues to GitHub. So yeah, and Jonathan Cogan has been doing a lot of work in setting up our sort of server infrastructure in sort of more maintainable chunks, all Dockerized and nicely organized. So this is going to help us a lot run the GNU Radio website and all these things with slightly less overhead. So getting rid of Redmine actually frees up our time to work on other things, which are really, really, in the long term and in the overall relevance of the GNU Radio project, much more important. Okay, let me just turn off that screen share then. Are there any questions on the wiki? Maybe something I glossed over too quickly? Seems like there are not.
Well, I just wanted to add something very briefly to that.
Sure, go ahead.
There's been a lot of requests for the GNURadio.org site, our main site, and now the wiki to operate over TLS. This Redmine conversion has been the thing that has gated that. We wanted to get this behind us so that we didn't have to convert that as well. Now that we're very close to getting the wiki cut over, the very next thing we'll be doing for the server infrastructure is getting the SSL up, so that we'll have secure access not only to the wiki, but also to the main GNURadio.org website.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jonathan. I did actually forget something on the wiki, something very important actually. So the old wiki did not have a license, and so everything up there was unlicensed, which we all know is not a good state to be in. We added a license to the new wiki, so everything that will be added to the wiki from now on will be a Creative Commons license. So we're using CC SABY, so that's attribute to share alike, I think is what it is. It's also what Wikipedia uses, only they also use FDL in combination with that, which interestingly enough, is something we're now also using for our own code-based documentation. Okay, that's really all I had on the wiki, though. So I'd like to hand it over to Jonathan to talk a little bit about the 3.7 and 3.8 releases.
Okay, I'll start first before we get into the status of the releases. We are looking for someone to take on the role of release manager for the project. This is mainly focused on the GNU Radio itself and not the other things, like PyBombs or the SIGMF activities. That said, the 3.7.11 and 10.2 releases, everything has actually been done, posted, and ready for use. The only thing lacking is actually announcing to the world that the releases happened. So we'll have that done very shortly. You'll be able to go to the usual links. The live SDR is done and posted. Again, the only thing lacking now is just updating the docs on the website, which will be done at the same time, and then we'll get an announcement out on the mailing list and an announcement out, on the news section of the main website. On 3.8, we just merged today a major update to the Python 3 branch, and what this allows us to do at this point is open up testing and development of the 3.8 branch to a much wider audience. We're finally at a point where the Python 3 branch can be built and used for just about anything except for GRC. Now that sounds like a big exception, but there's actually quite a bit of functionality that you can do obviously directly from Python, and we've had a number of people verify that their existing flow graphs work with 3.8, as long as they're not using any of the graphical interface stuff. So we're going to be posting the baseline, minimum versions of packages that you'll need to be able to build the Python 3 branch soon. And then we'll be able to, at that point, expect other people to be able to check out, compile, and run QA tests and do their own development out of tree work on that to verify that. The major thing that's left with 3.8, not everything, but the major thing that's left is the GRC work, which is nearly complete. That GRC work is more than just GRC. It's in fact a change to the whole system we use for annotating blocks and defining flow graphs with XML and the conversion from XML to YAML. The GRC work itself is, getting rid of the PyGTK and going with GObject. That's been a major dependency hassle for us, as it's now obsolete. So my expectation is very shortly, we'll send an email out inviting more participation for testing on the 3.8 branch. And again, minus GRC functionality, but I think we're quite far along at this point. Are there any questions about any of that?
I don't think so.
Right, back to you, Martin.
Actually, I'm going to hand it over to Ben. We've added another agenda item.
Yeah, so I have two things to talk about. Jonathan mentioned one of them is SIGMF, and the other one is just general grcon stuff. So I'll dive into SIGMF first. At the Brussels Hackfest last month, we started. I'm going to share my screen. Is that coming through okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the Brussels Hackfest last month, one of the things that we started working on was a metadata specification for describing signal captures. And the goal is to do this in a way that's portable. It allows you to use multiple tools. Allows you to add annotations to signals as you analyze them or detect and characterize features, that sort of thing. And also actually share data sets with other people in a way that allows them to make use of them. So it's still in early form. If you go to the GNU Radio repositories, You go to the specification here. It's sort of a nominally in an RFC format, although there's some deviation there. But it's, like I said, it's still very early. You can see here it's an unstable version number, but we're trying to gather as much feedback on the specification as possible. And the goal is for not just to have GNU Radio source and sync blocks for this, and the ability to add annotations, that sort of thing, but to propagate this broadly through the signal processing software community. And so to that end, we're trying to get as much feedback and involvement as possible from as many different parties as possible. So this is actually really important that this gets done. Right now, there's really not a good way to move signal data between tools, and especially not a good way to do it if you're not the person who recorded that signal data and know how it was recorded. This is really important, I think, for our field generally, and we want to make sure it's successful. So to that end, if you're interested, if you could review the specification, provide feedback. We're using the GitHub issue tracker for feedback and discussion. So you can see here, Kevin Reed just actually opened a couple of discussions on 2 topics. And if you're not necessarily interested in the specification itself, but actually interested in helping to implement some of the functionality, that would also be really useful. Things like static visualization tools. One of the things that's already in the repository that Martin and Julian Arnold actually worked on at the Hackfest is a web-based validator for a metadata file. So additional tools like that are needed in order to make SIGINF actually useful would be great. And interestingly, we've actually already seen some pickup of use of this, and at the IEEE Battle of the Modulation ModRex earlier this month, this was the required format for competitors to use in submitting effectively annotations back into the competition. So we want to get it to a point where it's stable and does what people need before lots of people try it. So that's already happening. So if you're interested, please have a look. Is there any questions there before I move on to GRCon? Nope. All right, so moving on to GRCon, we've had a couple of big announcements since last month. I've tried to be good about sending out GRCon releases to the mailing list. We've had a bunch of new sponsors join. Most of them have been announced and are up on the website now, but there are some with whom we're still finalizing, and they'll be up on the website soon. So in addition to a healthy list of conference sponsors that's growing pretty consistently, also very excited to say that we now have a student sponsor as well. Edis Research has agreed to chip in to sponsor student registrations. So earlier this week, I announced on the mailing list our student registration program. And this year we're breaking it into 2 tiers. There's one registration ticket type if you are a student and will be presenting at the conference, and another one if you're a student and will just be attending the conference. And presenting means either giving a talk or presenting a poster. So students have always been a big part of the GNU Radio community and GRCon especially. So we're doing as much as we can to encourage them to attend. And otherwise, I want to highlight the call for presentations is open. We're receiving abstracts now. We've already received some really good ones. The content of the conference is based pretty heavily on the quality of the presentation submissions that we get. So if you're doing interesting things, or even if if you're doing something in your basement that you think that people might be interested in, please come to GRCon and present it. We have really interesting talks every year. Last year, we had over 50 tech talks over the course of the week, almost all of which are on YouTube now on the GNU Radio channel. And some of them have actually received many thousands of views since the conference. So the content itself really does interest a broad audience. I also want to highlight the call for papers. So once again, we will have technical proceedings of GRCon. Tim O'Shea is the program chair for that this year again. You can see last year's technical proceedings at pubs.gnuradio.org. It is, it's a peer-reviewed technical publication, and last year's papers were good, and this year we want to grow involvement there. So I think that's all I have for GRCon for now. So the early bird registration is still live right now. Prices will go up to register shortly. So if you have not yet bought your registration for GRCon, I highly encourage you to do so soon before the prices go up. And I think that's all I had for GRCon. There's one more thing I'll talk about. Is there any questions about GRCon from anybody on the call right now? Nope. Okay, so the one other thing I wanted to highlight then before I hand it back to Martin is if you go to the GNU, I'll share my screen real quick. Application window, share. Okay, if you go to the GNU Radio website and you go to the About Leadership page, you can go down to the bottom of the page here. These are the roles that are actively, they're not officially filled within the organization right now. And Jonathan highlighted one, which is the release manager role. But we're always looking for people who want to get involved. There's lots of different ways to get involved. You can get involved with the kind of things like Martin highlighted, contributions from people in the community that have been absolutely critical in making the media wiki transition happen. And then there's roles like this that are more involved at a higher level within the project. And depending on what you're interested in and what your time allows for, we're always very welcoming and looking for people who want to jump in and help the project be successful. So if you see something here that you're interested in, get in touch with me and Jonathan and Martin, and we'd love to talk to you about it. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Martin.
And that's all we have for this call. So unless anyone else has last minute things they want to bring up or questions. Does not look like it. Okay, in that case, that's it. Thank you very much for joining or tuning in, whatever it was. This was the project call for GNU Radio for March 2017. And we'll have another one of these in April. Again, as usual, third Thursday of the month. And see you next month. Bye-bye.